The Portal King'd again, and this time he proved he is the one and only Portal King, and he isn't done.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Today on the show, we talk about Ole Miss getting a commitment from top cornerback prospect Isaiah Hamilton in a move that takes the Ole Miss cornerbacks from good to great this fall. Ole Miss offered a couple of wide receivers recently, and we look at Jacob Bostick's high school huddle film and introduce you to Jack Hestera from Charlotte. It wasn't all transfer portal news, though, because Ole Miss also picked up 6'4" cornerback from Tupelo, Mason Dunn's commitment. We'll talk about that as well. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thank you very much for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. The week of July 4th, we are going to have a meet and greet in the Jackson, Mississippi area. July 2nd will be the date, but the time and location is to be determined. But be on the lookout for something around Madison or Flowood. Just give everybody a heads up on that. And there's still time to join the Grove Collective and help Ole Miss football go to the top. You can go to thegrovecollective.com and join today. Game off. We need to talk some more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go, now free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. All right, so really interesting stuff. Ole Miss got a commitment from Isaiah Hamilton, the cornerback from the Houston Cougars. We talked with Parker Ainsworth from Locked On Cougs a couple of days ago, and he mentioned exactly why this was a big deal for the Houston Cougars. This is a player that transferred into Houston from Texas Southern, immediately became one of their better players, and was going to be their best returning cornerback going into the season. This is somebody that's graded out really well in coverage over the years with PFF. We're going to show you that in just a second. But at the end of the day, this is a situation that takes Pete Golding's defense from good to great. One of the few weak spots on this defense, if you look at it on paper, was the lack of a second established corner. You had Tre Harris, who is one of the top man coverage corners in all of the SEC going into this year. But the other side was a question mark. At best, a question mark. Even whenever you had a Morian Walker, even when you had Chris Graves, even when you had Cedric Beavers, those guys, Brandon Turnage on that side of the field, it was a question mark. It was one of those situations to where you didn't have guaranteed access to what you could expect. With Isaiah Hamilton, that goes away because the number 2 corner besides Tre Harris is kind of locked up. So you have 2 high-level corners playing on both sides of the field for the Ole Miss Rebels. You could have a situation to where you're doing man on one side, zone on the other, because Isaiah Hamilton, he is flexible enough to do that, and Tre Harris is a man coverage corner. He's really a special dude. And because of him, because Ole Miss went out and got this football player, your defense just got a whole lot more creative going into the season, because you're not going to have to handle the secondary with kids' gloves. You're going to get to go out and challenge people. You're going to have a defensive line. Let's just start with the defensive line. Defensive tackles, J.J. Pegues and Walter Nolan starting. Hopefully both of them will demand double teams. And if they fail to double team the player, that is a situation where the offensive lineman is going to lose. 2 extremely athletic players in J.J. Pegues and Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan was a former number 1 player in high school football going out there, went to Texas A&M, transferred to Ole Miss. J.J. Pegues, we all know the story of J.J. Pegues. He's essentially the short yardage back. So on a 4th and 1, you're going to see J.J. Pegues step into the lineup, which is going to open up single blocked opportunities for Princely Amon-Mielen and Jared Ivey on the starting side of the field. Meaning also you could have linebackers blitzing on free rushes because of double teams set up on Walter Nolan and J.J. Pegues. This is why this is important. You're not going to be so afraid to do that. You're not going to have to play zone coverage as much. You can line up and play man coverage and press man and things like that. And you do not have to worry about zone coverage, which is a naturally weak defense against the run. Somebody like Isaiah Hamilton complimenting a guy like Tre Amos and a bunch of Power 5 guys in the middle of the field playing in the secondary means that Ole Miss can line up and let the front 7 kind of cook. Remember what the defense looked like for Ole Miss in 1993 for people old enough to do that. When you had Norman Hand and Tim Bowens, that opened so much stuff up for Cassius Ware and Abdul Jackson, even Dwayne Dotson and all the blitzes that came from all different areas. And why is this relevant? Why is this a relevant thing? That defense in 93 was coached by Joe Lee Dunn, who was the architect of the 3-3 defense. The 3-3 stack was a Joe Lee Dunn architect job. Well, over the years, his coaching tree kind of branched out and ended up in San Diego State. And one of the coaches that were on that staff and learning all of that stuff was Zach Arnett, who is now an analyst at Ole Miss. Linebacker whisperer. Expect TJ Dudley, Santarin Perkins, Chris Paul to have amazing years on the linebacker positions because you have a linebacker whisperer in that room. This defense has just kind of gone from good to great, in my opinion, and especially the secondary from good to great. Now, when you look at the last couple of years, Isaiah Hamilton, this is his PFF grade. He has a PFF grade of 86.9. He has 12 interceptions and 18 pass breakups, a 70.2 passer rating allowed, and a 90.8 coverage grade. That's since 2021. If you look at that, that is a large sample size. If you look at him week by week, this is what he did in his first year in the Big 12 when he made the jump up from the SWAC and Texas Southern to the Big 12. 77, 72, 65, 79, 57, 54, 40 against Texas, but that makes sense. Texas is a good team. Nearly 70 against Kansas State. And he was a picture of consistency. His numbers were all pretty much around the same area. He had one bad game, had one really good game, but he pretty much graded out in a similar area. He was fairly consistent about what was going on. This is a good football player. This is a guy that is going to complement Tre Amos. And we know how Ole Miss feels about Tre Amos. We saw the Tre Amos versus Tre Harris battles during spring practice. They put those up on the Twitter timelines all of the time. Those were impressive videos put up by Ole Miss football to honestly try to market this matchup and how good of a player Tre Amos is. Because Tre Harris, I've been on here and said, I think he's the best wide receiver in college football. Tre Amos going up against him is an iron sharpens iron type of thing. This is a situation where not necessarily a missing piece, because I do not want to go there. It's not a missing piece, but it is a way to take the defense from good to great. It was an upgrade. And now you have Chris Graves, who's going to play a ton, and he started against Georgia a year ago. You have Cedric Beavers, who does not have to be thrown in to SEC football immediately. And you have Brandon Turnage, who's a good player who can fill in as well. You know, on these Pete Golding defenses, it's not a starting 11, it's a starting 22. So you need 4 cornerbacks that you can count on. And on the very top end, whenever you're playing teams that have a lot of stuff, let's say Ole Miss would be going against LSU, okay? Last year's LSU team that had Malik Neighbors and Brian Smith. With Isaiah Hamilton and Tre Amos, you feel infinitely better about that matchup. You can load up against the run and have little or no fear that they're going to be able to victimize you over and over again. Texas A&M with Evan Stewart and Moose Muhammad and all those guys, you feel better in that matchup. Against Georgia with Ladd McConkey and Ra Thomas, you feel better in that matchup. Those were the games that Pete Golding was building this defense to prevent from happening in the future. Isaiah Hamilton, amazing pickup. Ole Miss fans should be doing cartwheels right now because of this pickup, because of what it means, and not necessarily because of how they're going to be on pass defense or things like that, because of how it should be more aggressive on the defensive line, defensive front seven area. You can see them become a more aggressive unit because of what you can count on the back part of that defense. Really, really interesting stuff indeed. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. Ole Miss is kind of making waves because it's offering wide receivers when they already have one of the more talented wide receiver rooms in the country. Why are they doing that? Hint, it's not about 2024. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find the quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire the professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open for that perfect role. In a giving month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're kind of doing it wrong, right? On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses has gotten a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 small businesses cannot be wrong by using LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Go to Locked On Sports today, and it brings you can't miss analysis, opinion, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, it's really interesting stuff because we talked basically for a couple of weeks leading up to the transfer portal about Ole Miss looking to make a splash at running back and potentially doing to the running back room what Ole Miss did to the quarterback room a year ago. And Ole Miss ended up getting a couple of commits and things like that with Henry Parrish Jr. and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And, that appeared right. But now Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss staff is starting to put out offers to wide receivers. Why would you do that with the best wide receiver room potentially in the country? Hint, it's not for this year. Whoever gets recruited is not going to be counted on to be a star this year. But here's the thing. This is the thing that everybody needs to realize in this age of the transfer portal, especially now at this moment where there's no contracts, to where twice a year a player can leave your program. At any particular transfer portal, it could be a death blow type portal to where it severely hurts the output of your program. I talk all the time about how programs don't exist anymore. Well, Lane Kiffin is trying to find a way in this modern college football to have something with some semblance of predictability. And the way he's doing that is by using every opportunity to essentially recruit every position, whether you're set for this current season or not. Right now, Jacob Bostick, a player out of Illinois who signed with the Iowa Hawkeyes during the course of the season, he redshirted this year. A good player. He's a speedy guy. He's somebody that in Illinois made all kinds of waves. but he also has 4 years of eligibility left. This is a recruitment. If Ole Miss were to sign Jacob Bostick, this would be a recruitment for 2025 and beyond. This is not for the 2024 class. Don't look at just a wide receiver and look at how he is going to be. You don't know how the next transfer portal is going to go. You need as many bodies as you can get. What happens after the football season if Aiden Williams and Noreel White transfer away? You're absolutely screwed for 2025 in a season when you have Austin Simmons or Walker Howard or somebody like that talented enough to build you up to make another playoff run over the next couple of years. But if the transfer portal does not necessarily go right, it could be problematic for you. So you take the opportunity to add to that room and add to nearly every room and every opportunity. If a player that meets your take line, like let's go into a piece of paper and draw a line, and everybody that has analytics above that line, you're willing to take. Anybody below that, you are not willing to take. Everybody that's above that line, if they want to come to Ole Miss, odds are that they're going to be listened to, and they're going to try and find a way to get him on campus. That's the way they're going to do this. And Jacob Bostick would be an unbelievably athletic guy with a chance to be fairly prolific on the Ole Miss wide receiver room. Now, next year's wide receivers, you have Aiden Williams, obviously, who is potentially an alpha dog type unit, wide receiver in that unit. You have Jerome Miles, the wide receiver out of Corner Canyon, who, by the way, I think won a track meet the other day with like a 20-second 200 meter, some kind of a ridiculous amount, some ridiculous time of speed and all that. So it's a big deal. Noreel White, an excellent slot receiver. Cayden Lee. There's a lot of wide receivers that Ole Miss want to look at moving forward. Another one that they were interested in is, honestly, this is Jack Hestera. He is a wide receiver coming from Charlotte. I know that's a Colorado picture on there. But last year for Charlotte, he had 28 catches, 349 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not a big-time receiver, not a game breaker, but as Lane Kiffin has said, the transfer portal can be used to establish depth. And because of that, you have to understand that you're going to find players. If Jack Hestera decides to go to Ole Miss in a year or this year, and it will be here because he has multiple years of eligibility, he would be the old guy in the room next season. A room that has a whole bunch of young wide receivers and inexperienced wide receivers. Jack Hestera is famously, honestly, he's out of Texas, but he went to Colorado and he was on the team when Deion Sanders told everybody to transfer away, that he was bringing his own luggage. Jack Hestera did transfer away. He was 28 for 349, 3 touchdowns, and now he has a chance to potentially end up at Ole Miss to where he could have a playoff run this year. While the other team last season went 4-8. And I'm not 100% sure if I would count on them to do a lot better this year. It's interesting stuff. It just really is. The wide receiver room. And I think they're going to do stuff with the offensive line. I think they're going to work the defensive line. There's still Tyler Barron rumors out there. Until he commits to another school, I think we need to pay attention to him. I think there's linebackers that we need to watch for as well. Not necessarily starters. Not a Chris Pupal, not a TJ Dudley or Suntaran Perkins or any of that, but somebody that can just fill the role. Somebody that can do some stuff and provide depth. Remember, on a Pete Golding defense, it's not a starting 11, it's a starting 22. So you need roughly 4 linebackers that you can count that is starting level for what you want to do. So I think we need to pay attention at least to that. And obviously the defensive back, Ole Miss has already added on that side of the ball, and they've added running backs as well, which, by the way, interesting enough, after the loss of Quinshon Judkins, who many people think is the best running back in college football, Ole Miss is rated as the 5th best running back room in the country right now, with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Henry Parrish Jr. and Ulysses Bentley and those guys playing in the backfield as well. This team and this roster is stacked. It's beautiful, man. It is unbelievable. And the Ole Miss has made it through the transfer portal without losing a single player off of their 2 deep. It's the secret sauce. Nick Saban said that in this age of the transfer portal, they don't lose starters. It was the second team players, the backups that were going away. And their backups were so good because they had 85 4-star or better players on their roster. So we'll see how it looks. But the starters and the contributors are not transferring away. This Ole Miss roster is as beautiful as it's ever been. Just gorgeous. Now, they still have to do it. They still have to win. And if they don't, there's going to be so much backlash and so much pressure on them. And if you're not careful, that pressure will absolutely take you down. But this Ole Miss team has all the talent to do it. If you watch Crane and Company on the Daily Wire, that podcast, they mentioned Ole Miss as the number 1 threat for Georgia. You see people all the time talking about Ole Miss and Texas as the threats to Georgia. Everybody thinks this Ole Miss roster is special. Everybody thinks that. And there's good reason for that too. We'll see exactly how that goes and exactly how it plays out. But right now, man, it's something else. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. Ole Miss football isn't ignoring high school ranks because we look at a commitment from a 6'4" cornerback that Ole Miss just received. All right, game off. We got to pause right here to talk more about Monopoly Go. Here's what you need to know. I know you're saying flag on the play. You've already talked about that, but there's just so much good to talk about in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can build up a team with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There's so much to get. There's unique stickers that you can trade with your friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the board with. Hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV Channels app. Be part of history. Went to the free Fire TV Channels app today and looked around on it, and lo and behold, Locked On is at it like the college football channel, and there's so many different things and so many different videos that you can check out. You don't want to miss that. And there's rumors of maybe SEC-centric channel that is going to be launched in the near future as well. I'm pretty fired up about what that could be, and I'm pretty fired up about, honestly, Ole Miss getting a commitment from Mason Dunn out of Tupelo, Mississippi. And I'm loading up right now this thing that I did not do earlier, but this is what I just loaded up. He is a cornerback out of Tupelo, Mississippi. He's a 2025. You can see that 247 Sports is the only scouting service that has ranked him at this point. And by the way, Tupelo's defense over the last couple of years has been fairly impressive. But Mason Dunn is 6'4" cornerback who, whenever you look at his video, it completely jumps off the page. And, I'm not a huge fan of Tupelo High School and their blue turf. I don't like the blue turf. Like the whole Boise State thing has just wrecked me. So I'm not a fan every time I see that color blue. But he makes plays. He is good at covering receivers and keeping his eye on the quarterback to be able to make plays downfield, because high school quarterbacks are notoriously inaccurate. They are. It's just what it is. There's not every day you're lining up against Peyton Manning in high school football. More often than not, you're lining up with somebody that can't really throw the ball. Think the way that Wild Thing was in Major League in spring training. That's what you get with a high school quarterback. Accuracy is optional in high school. And he does a good job of being able to use his superior athletic ability to cover whoever he's covering while keeping his eyes on the football to be able to make a play and come off of it. Because a lot of times in high school football, that the receivers end up bunched together. There's not very good spacing. And it's not anything the high school coach has done. He's probably coached it to where there's 10, 15 yards of separation, but that's not usually the way it runs. The way you run a post route or on all of that, there's people that cut it off and there's things that they do. And because of that, the quarterback cannot be accurate. Well, Mason Dunn always seems to find himself in the area to actually make the quarterback pay for doing that. A 6'4" cornerback. This is Miles Battle. This is that level of the length. Whenever you look at what Amorian Walker was when he got to Oxford, even though he's kind of the unicorn athletic ability, but they thought they could get him to do this. This is another 6'4" cornerback. Now the question is, will he be able to bend? Will he be stiff? Will he be able to use his hips? Things like that. That's going to be the question. Whenever you get over about 6'1", that becomes an issue potentially. Those that can do it will end up playing on Sundays and making a lot of money to do it. But those that cannot do it will wash out in college football. Now, this guy is rated as a 3-star prospect on 247. He's not rated on On3. He's not rated on Rivals, and he's not rated on ESPN. That's going to change. Mississippi's not the most scouted state in the world. We had Brian Smith on here as well over the course of the week, and he talked about it's just difficult to get from one area to the other. You might have 90 minutes to 2 hours in between high schools and prospects that you want to see. There's not a hub like it is, say, here in Florida. I can just do the I-4 hub on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and see 6 high school football games, all of which have top-level prospects. So there's scouts all over this place. This place is inundated with scouts. That isn't the case in Mississippi. You look at like formerly Scout, what became 247 and is now becoming On3. The publishers of the team sites do a lot of work in scouting. So what happens is people that are really interested in players that you are recruiting, your analysts and your publishers try to get the highest possible rating for that person. It's not an independent thing. And the same thing happens the other guy who is constantly also trashing the players that are already committed to your school. And Mississippi, for the longest time, was at the mercy of that. And this wasn't a situation where a lot of runners or anything like that was happening, but it was a situation that basically Egg Bowl rivalry permeated everything. But Mason Dunn, I think, is a good player. I think as he develops over the course of this season, once he start playing and people paying attention to it, you'll see him go up the rankings as well. They're probably looking at ranking him right now, honestly. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen. We have the most perspectives, I should say, surrounding Ole Miss sports, and it is one of the many reasons why we are the number one Ole Miss podcast. And thank you for that. But for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover each and every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And for those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.